Welcome to the Apply Pressure Podcast with yours truly, Transformer Chris. Here, we dig deep and go beyond the surface, uncover what's hidden, talk straight, no fluff, share secrets, give advice, and keep it all the way real regarding life. Listen, sis, I know you be busy doing what you do, but child boo, I really need to talk to you. Lately, I've been doing this really intense workout regimen, and I committed to this strict diet for myself, right? When I noticed that after going strong for a few weeks at a time, doing really good, seeing drastic changes in my body, that out of nowhere, it always seems to come to a standstill. Like a halt. All progress literally seems to just freeze, even though I'm still sticking to the routine that got me this far. It makes me feel so angry because it's nothing like working really hard and not getting paid for it. And that's how this makes me feel. Like, if it's not going to be beneficial, then it's really not worth me doing. But what I learned was that at a certain point, what happens is your body adapts to the new norm and it learns to cope there. It starts to reprogram itself to function in a new system that you've created. And it'll try to find ways to stabilize itself and to create balance. Whereas in order for there to be continual weight loss, you don't need stability. We need for there to be an unbalance until we reach the BMI that we would like to maintain. So what we have to do is we have to constantly trick the system. And by tricking the system, I mean, you got to change the routine. You have to learn to flip the script from time to time. And at any given moment, right in the midst of comfort and familiarity, we have to be daring enough to switch up our flow. Our bodies can become so accustomed to a certain flow that we'll begin to no longer see the results that we're looking for. And that's when many of us tend to give up. My body had become immune to the new regimen. See, in the beginning, it was the shock to my body that brought about that drastic change. My body wasn't used to functioning with that new system, so the response that it gave was different than the norm. But due to the intelligence of cells and muscles, once it adapted, it then learned how to store the fat that it needed to maintain on that particular level, if that makes sense. Another thing to keep in mind when we're talking about stuff like this is memory. Our bodies are programmed to remember. So depending on how long our BMI is at a certain index, it becomes the body's default setting. So even after you reach your desired goal, your body will revert back to its default setting if you don't create a new one. If you notice, in many cases, getting to the expected end isn't always the greatest challenge. It's staying there. That's the challenge. And that right there is a super important fact to remember about life in general. There will always be a way for you to get to where you're going. But having developed what it takes to remain there, now that's solely dependent upon the person and if they have what it takes to last. Don't ever just aim to arrive. Aim to thrive. And I think that it's important to talk about stuff like this because although it's a very basic principle, you would be surprised by how many people don't even consider it. Because although I related this to my weight loss story for this podcast, the fact is many of you are encountering this same battle in every area of your life. How many times do you recall trying to build a better life and get things done? Trying to accomplish your goals and live out your dreams? Wanting to achieve different results and make it all feel worth it in the end? And for a while, you've been on a really good path to success. And then at some point, it seems like things just take a turn for the worse. And you're running head first into a brick wall. Remember, you started out this year with a whole list of things that you wanted to do. A whole list of things that you saw yourself one day being proud of. Only for halfway through to look up and see that most of the things on that list haven't been done. Haven't even been touched. Because you realized it wasn't as easy as you thought it was going to be. You didn't think about the opposition you would be up against. And many of you have given up because you stopped seeing the results that you were expecting. Because the evidence of your work wasn't there. And so now you stopped believing that it was even possible. You started thinking that maybe that goal was too far out of your reach. Maybe you bit off more than you can chew in this situation. You started to convince yourself that it wasn't worth the fight anymore. So instead, I'll just settle here. Well, maybe it's not meant to be after all. Maybe it's not as bad as I think for me to just stay here in this place that I'm in right now. If it was supposed to happen for me, then it wouldn't be this hard. What's meant to be will be. That's our favorite one. No, here's a reality check. Nothing is going to just happen. If you want it to happen, you have to make it happen. Now is not the time for you to stop. It wasn't that you needed to quit. It's just time for you to change your routine. A lot of the problems that you are having is because you haven't switched things up in a while. You ever pay attention to how sport teams study the footage of the other team's previous games? Well, the reason they do that is because they want to be able to predict their moves. So they watch. Because they want to know how their opponents function. Many of you have been under some serious attacks and you're losing the battle because your enemy and all of your competitors have studied your tape. They've been watching your footage and can now predict what you're going to do next. Anytime you become predictable, people stop checking for you. Because once they got you figured out, they're one up on you. They're a step ahead. So they don't need you anymore because they already know what to expect from you. So it's time for you to change things up. It's time for you to unexpectedly switch up your play. Another example, and I spoke about this before, is systems and flows and routines are so important when it comes to the body. So much so that even disease and viruses and bacteria flows on a system. And they are interrupted by changes of regular routine. Most people think that the sole reason for flossing is to get the big pieces of food out of your teeth. They aren't fully aware of the depth of what's really taking place. The reason that flossing is such a big part of our dental hygiene is because over time, bacteria forms in our mouth that creates acid that eats away at our teeth and causes decay. Did you know that? That bacteria, it travels through a sequence that we interfere with whenever we floss. We disrupt the system when we floss, causing the decaying process to subside. That's what happens when you switch up your routine. You interrupt the sequential plots and plans that are formulated against you. Stop allowing everything to just take you out of the game. What's going to be your counterattack moving forward? What can you do differently? Think about it. If you have already successfully made it to one level of life, and you're ready to elevate and go higher, you're ready to go to the next level, then everything you did thus far is what got you here, but it won't take you there. In order for you to go somewhere different, it's going to require you to do something different. You're going to have to make some moves. You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to switch things up. Everybody shouldn't always be able to see you coming. If I can predict beforehand what you're going to do, then again, what do I need you for? To stay ahead of the game, you got to offer people something new. In this next season of life, challenge yourself to something greater. Every successful business always have things like quarterly assessments where the top partners will all come together and have what's called a meeting of the minds. And they do this because they desire to stay relevant. So they come together and they brainstorm on what they need to do different to improve with time. What they need to do different to make sure that they go a little higher. What they need to do different in areas where they were lacking, in areas where they were struggling. We need to start asking ourselves those same type of questions. What is it going to take from you in this next season for you to stay afloat? That's how you apply pressure. You go hard in your areas of lack. You properly assess the situations where you are failing and you make the necessary adjustments so that you win in the end. I know in all actuality, persistence is a lot harder than it seems, but before you throw it all away, before you burn it down to the ground, I'm seriously asking you, sis, to first try switching up your routine. Okay, ladies, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you stay caught up and don't miss out on what's next. If you're enjoying this atmosphere, be sure to go and leave your girl a review. That way this platform can continue to evolve and build a strong network of empowered women of purpose. Until next time, hop over to my website. Make sure you subscribe and capture all the latest products and free giveaways by visiting www.crystalmetellus.com. Also, connect with me on social media @CrystalMetellus. Talk to you later, sis.